Hello, I'm Joe Kristofoletti. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to talk about some of the projects I've done and start with how I got into doing public projects. I've been doing large-scale public art and murals for about 10 years. And it all started with when I had just finished art school. And like a lot of people ask you, well, what are you going to do when you're done, with an art degree? So I wasn't so sure, but a lot of artists, they make some work to exhibit in art galleries, museums, and things like that. But I knew that that's not really what was the most exciting part to me. I had this idea that the work that I wanted to make, I wanted it to be out in the world. I wanted it to be out in the real world. And so I had some friends that had this idea to travel around the country in a bus. And so there were 7 of us. We all had just finished school. And the idea was to travel around basically without a schedule or without clear plans of what to do, but we would walk around, basically drive around, go to different towns, and do some kind of project, some kind of art project in every place that we went to. So we took a retired city transit bus from Philadelphia and converted it to run on vegetable oil, using some plans we found online, and it seemed like a good idea at the time. So we traveled around. Much of the time we spent fixing the oil system or going to the back of fast food restaurants and pumping oil out of their back storage. So, but we did also some fun projects, such as recreating the moon landing out of, again, some different parts that we found in a salvage yard. And we did this in North Dakota in a small town. It was like their Saturday entertainment where we recreated the whole moon landing and engaged, this fun project with them. Or sometimes I would go and just pretend that I was a documentary filmmaker and interview people about what they were doing. So this happened to be in Roswell, New Mexico at the UFO Museum. So but the idea behind the project was that, if you could do anything, what would you want to do? What kind of project would you want to do? And we drove around, and we got to meet a lot of interesting people. And around the same time, my main project on the trip was to paint murals. So I painted murals in different cities across the U.S. And around the same time, I was reading something in the newspaper about this massive science project called the Large Hadron Collider. And I just saw these images. First of all, just the pictures were really striking. This looked like this massive machine, and I was reading about it, and basically it was a group of physicists from all over the world working together. This is the largest collaborative project in human history, the most complex project in human history. Some of you guys have maybe heard about it, but I was really interested in what they were doing because they were trying to create a device that could, where they could study the origins of the universe. They could recreate the conditions that existed in the very beginning of the universe, just a fraction of a second after the Big Bang. And so I did a mural of one of their detectors in one of the towns we happened to be traveling in, in South Carolina at the time. And it was written up in the local paper. I asked the physics professor from the college there to come and give a talk about CERN. And so he came and talked about basically one of the ideas, one way to explain to people what they're doing at CERN is they're basically taking things and smashing them into each other and seeing what comes out. So that, to me, sounds like a lot like what I do. Like even as simple as just taking two different colors, mixing them together to see what the new color is going to be, or something like that. So anyway, this project was written up in the local paper, and someone at CERN had found this online, and they contacted me to see if they could use it for their website. At the time, I thought, my dream project would be if I could go to CERN and paint a mural for their detector there. So while I was talking on the phone, the lady asked me about this picture, and I said, sure, you can, you're welcome to use it. And I thought, well, since I have them on the phone, I might as well ask them, how would they feel about me going over there and doing a mural on their building? And she said, well, this is not we're a science laboratory, and we don't have any kind of funding or a budget for art projects. But she said, well, we do have a lot of gray buildings around here. So I figured, okay, that's my kind of cue that I could maybe do something with them. So I just kept calling them, emailing them, and that led to doing a project where I took the building that houses their main detector, the control room, and painted this large mural on the side of it. CERN is basically a massive tunnel that was dug under the Swiss-French border, and it's 17 miles long. It's a particle accelerator, and they get protons to speed up and go almost as close as possible to the speed of light before they smash them into each other in order to try and find new kinds of matter, in order to figure out, how did the Big Bang happen? Where does matter originate? How did it come about? So after I got permission to work there, it took a couple of years to do all the administrative work, to get the fundraising, and before I was able to start work on this mural, including getting nuclear safety training, and working with all these physicists. The interesting thing was that, as fascinated as I was to talk to some of the top physicists in the world, they were also just as curious about talking with an artist and seeing, how I saw the project that they were working on. This is a close-up of the mural, which is a signature. So when they collide these particles together, they get these snapshots inside the detector, which is basically, imagine an 8-story building-sized digital camera that has the whole space of it is filled with the same thing that digital cameras have. The kind of detectors they use for light were actually invented at CERN by these physicists for the purpose of studying subatomic particles. And so the signature you see here represents the Higgs boson, which at the time I was doing this painting they had not yet discovered, but they had worked for decades on this hypothetical particle that they thought they could find. So once they discovered it, images of my project, of this mural, ran in hundreds of newspapers and magazines talking about the project of discovering the Higgs boson. And the interesting thing about working on an art project at CERN is they, at the time, they really weren't sure how to work with me. But after this project, they have now a artist in residence program where they accept artists from around the world to go and do projects. When I first, a few years later, when I first moved to Austin, I was driving around and looking for wall space to paint, and I saw this kind of abandoned construction site with lots of gray walls. And I thought, oh, that would be a good place to paint something on. So this is a mural I did of a grasshopper. There are parts of Texas that have a very unique kind of grasshopper. They're called the painted grasshopper because of all the interesting colors that they have on it. And this is the first large mural that was painted at a site that you guys maybe have been to at Castle Hill on 12th Street, where now it's become a kind of a free wall for people to go and paint on. But one of the things that I've always been really affected by is the way things look. So I always am very affected by my surroundings, the buildings, and sometimes I wonder why so many of the buildings that get built are so ugly or so lifeless seeming. And I thought, wow, murals are a way to take architectural space and give it another kind of life, another form. But I can only paint so many murals, and I thought, what if there was a way that I could come up with a new technique, a new process for painting that was similar to printing. So think about your inkjet printers at home in your office. I thought, what if I made a large printer that could be attached to the side of a building and print out images of anything you wanted. So instead of ink, it would use these spray canisters and spray out little dots of color. So these are some of the test images. I've been working with the engineering department at the University of Texas, some engineering students, to build a robot that can paint images on the side of buildings. Recently, I was also an artist in resident. I was asked to be an artist in resident at the Facebook headquarters here, and I think there's something where more and more organizations and companies are asking artists to do projects for them for something that you maybe can't quite clearly explain, why they would need artists to do these projects. But I designed this entranceway and painted this mural in their lobby where people come and go to work every day. And I based it on a color spectrum, which is a transition from different colors, from basically various light and various color variations of that you find in the spectrum. So this is a anamorphic type of painting where different angles, when you look at it from different angles, it seems to stretch out, or it seems to shift in the way that you move around it. And finally, I have currently been commissioned by the city of Austin to do a large mural, so look out for that this fall. I'll be painting on the side of the convention center parking garage, and thank you very much.